All right, this is section 1.3 of Unit A on biology. So we're talking about blood in this section. So blood is made up of more than just, I guess, what we consider as like the liquid part of the blood. There's many more parts to it. And there's actually 4 parts to the blood, so we're going to go through those different things. So what we consider as, you would think of as blood is the plasma. So plasma is the fluid part of the blood, and it makes up about 55% of the blood volume. It contains things like your blood cells, carbon dioxide that's being brought to your lungs to get rid of, urea, hormones, nutrients, vitamins and minerals, and proteins. So lots of different things moving around inside of the fluid of your blood. So if we look at a whole blood sample from a patient, you see this is what we would consider looking at blood. We can put it in a centrifuge, and a centrifuge is something that basically spins really fast and will actually help to separate the different parts of the blood in a sample. So if we put our blood in a centrifuge, it'll separate like this. At the very bottom, the heaviest or most dense part of your blood is your red blood cells. Then above that is your platelets and your white blood cells in that really small band. And then the rest of it is that yellowy part, which is your plasma. So most of your blood is made up of that yellowy plasma. They say it's like a straw color. But we don't see our blood as that because of the red blood cells that give it that red color. So red blood cells, they make up about 45% of your blood volume. And they are called erythrocytes, sort of the scientific name of them. They live about 120 days, and they're produced in your bone marrow. So bone marrow is inside of your bones, and some people who might have problems with their blood, like leukemia or some sort of blood disease, they can get bone marrow transplants, where they will take bone marrow from one person and put it in that person who needs the bone marrow in hopes that their body will start creating normal red blood cells, white blood cells, whatever it's trying to create. They do not contain a nucleus, so they're a type of cell, but they don't have a nucleus. They sort of look donut-shaped. So if we were to draw a red blood cell, there's sort of like this dip in it in the middle, and they don't have anything really in it. There's no nucleus there. But what our red blood cell does have is it transports oxygen. So just on the surface of this, there might be little oxygens connected, okay? And those oxygens are connected to the hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is a protein that is on our red blood cells. That is what our oxygen binds to. So without hemoglobin, we wouldn't be able to carry oxygen in our blood. And then if we don't have oxygen in our blood, it doesn't go to our cells, you know what would happen there. So when hemoglobin is attached to your red blood cell, or to the oxygen, it's called oxyhemoglobin. So that's what the point of hemoglobin is. They say it has a bioconcave shape. This makes it easy for them to move through the blood vessels, and it gives them a lot of surface area to exchange gases. So my picture sort of looks like a bad sunny side up egg, but it is like a circular, maybe there's a picture of it on here. No, there isn't. I will post a picture of what a red blood cell looks like because my picture is really bad, but it sort of looks like donut shaped. It's deeper in the middle, and that's where you can connect more oxygen and carbon dioxide, that gas exchange. And the hemoglobin is all over the red blood cell, okay? White blood cells, they're known as leukocytes. So leukemia is leuko, which means the white blood cells or the immune system, which we'll get to. But anyway, white blood cells make up less than 1% of your blood volume. They live for 13 to 20 days, and they're also produced in your bone marrow. So like I said, if you won't need a bone marrow transplant, it's hoping that your body will produce proper red and white blood cells. And they have a nucleus. So these have a nucleus to them. So if you see a white blood cell, they're actually not circular. They tend to be sort of like this, and they'll actually have a defined nucleus. Too many of them may signal an infection. So if you feel like you're not feeling good, they can do a blood test. And if you have a lot of white blood cells in your blood at that time, there might be an infection somewhere in your body. So here's a picture of what they might look like. So the red blood cells are these ones. These are known as the platelets. And then our white blood cells are these smaller versions that look a lot like platelets as well. They're not really circular, so these white blood cells, they have different shapes, but they do have a defined nucleus, like I said, so you can see that white dot on all of these, okay? Yeah, so red blood cells, platelets, white blood cells, and then the liquid would be that all floats in would be the plasma. There's a bunch of different types of white blood cells. And, oh, here's a picture of a red blood cell. So you can see it sort of looks like, I don't know, I say a donut, but it's more, it goes in the middle. That's why they call it bioconcave. Or biconcave, not bio. Macrophage are part of your white blood cells, which I'm not sure if we go into exactly what those are. Platelets, I think we're going to go to next. A monocyte, neutrophil, and eosinophil, and basophil, those are all part of your white blood cells. And what your white blood cells are part of your immune response. So if you have an intruder in your body, the white blood cells are going to go there to attack it. Here's a picture of what it might look like under a microscope. So a high-powered microscope, you can see the white blood cell visible in the center of the photo. So right here, white blood cell, the rest of them would be platelets and red blood cells. Again, high power, number of platelets visible along with another type of white blood cell in the center. So a different type of white blood cell. See how those look slightly different? If we go back over here, you might be able to figure out what they are. This monocyte has like only one sort of piece in the middle. That might be what this is. I would say that's a monocyte. This one has a bunch of little pieces inside, so I might think that's a neutrophil. So okay. And then a blood sample is a patient who has neutrophilia. So maybe this isn't a neutrophil. But this one is, they're saying, are neutrophils. I think it's just dyed differently. So obviously there's some sort of disease in their body that's creating these white blood cells that are trying to get rid of the intruder or invader. The fourth one here is platelets. So the platelets are the last part of our blood, and platelets are basically used to block your damaged blood vessels. It says when you get a cut, the bleeding usually stops after a short amount of time, and this is all because proteins in your blood plug the damaged vessel. Fibrinogen is a protein present in the blood that blocks the damaged blood vessels. When a blood vessel is damaged, the fibrinogen creates a thread-like protein called fibrin. The fibrin makes a sort of web in your blood vessel that traps red blood cells. And this makes sort of like a blood clot which it says is a jelly-like mass. I've got some of that cut off there, so I'm just going to double check to make sure that I'm not missing too much. So it's cut off in this one as well. I'll double check and make sure, but basically all we need to know is that platelets are, this was your blood vessel and you get a cut, so we're gonna, we'll make a cut right here. So blood's coming out of that cut. It's just gonna keep coming out until these platelets come, and they sort of make like a web to try and keep that closed. So as the blood flows through your vessels, it's not gonna go out there, okay? So these platelets will protect you from bleeding. And then eventually, yeah, your blood stops. You've seen this probably, I hope, in your life, you've had a cut. The blood will keep flowing through your veins or your arteries, probably veins. It's normally where we get a cut. And that's all due to platelets. There are people that don't have platelets, so yes, that brings us to the next one. Hemophilia, so this is a disorder which involving the blood's reduced ability to clot, which can lead to excessive bleeding. So someone who has hemophilia, they get cut, and then they don't have the platelets there to be able to stop the bleeding. So they get their cut, and then there's nothing that can stop it, so they just keep bleeding. So their body doesn't stop it, so they would have to stop it by holding it down, basically, or keeping it closed up until the body's able to heal that area. And people with hemophilia, they can take medication that will help to produce these proteins in their blood, but it's very dangerous for them to be doing any sort of, I don't know, physical activity and stuff like that that could get them hurt, because it's one thing to see a cut on someone's body, but internal bleeding that you can't see, without those platelets in their body, they could bleed to death internally and not even know it. So really a terrible disease to have. This is the clotting process. So it said the skin is cut, blood starts leaking out of the body to wash out dirt and germs from the cut. Platelets come into contact with the rough surface of the cut, and the platelets rupture and release chemicals that convert fibrogen into thread-like fibrins or fibrins. So these threads start to close up that area. Then the red blood cell gets caught in them, and it creates sort of a blood clot, and then the clot hardens to form a protective barrier, and we know that as a scab. So a scab is something there to sort of protect it, keep it there, keep it protected until this part is healed, right? So we don't want to pick off our scabs, because that's what's protecting the healing process underneath. I know it's fun to pick off scabs sometimes, or it is to me, but really important that you leave those scabs there, because they're majorly helping you from either bleeding out or healing in that area. So every time you take the scab off, it's gonna have to create a new scab, and then you'll never heal. Here's a YouTube video. I'm not sure what it's on, but I will double check here, and I can add it to the Google Classroom with this video. For this section, I want you to work on questions on page 41, 27 to 29, and then 1 to 5 on 41. Okay?